Good afternoon, Alan. How are you? Welcome to the LoLa podcast. This is the first episode, so you're going to be our first guest. And I mean, what a guest we have as well. How are you today?
Well, I'm just thinking about beginner's luck. So hopefully you have beginner's luck and I have beginner's luck as being the first prototype for your newfangled web podcast. So let's hope it's the brave helping the brave.
Definitely, that's how it works. Givers gain and all that. So from today, I'm going to make a start. We've got a bit of a script here. I'm sure you've seen the questions, but I wanted to stay a bit natural as well. As we're going through the conversation, if you want to veer into direction that seems like it's more relevant for what you want to discuss, we'll do that. It's an open discussion. But I wanted to start the whole conversation today just by understanding a bit more about who is Landmass. So if you can give us a bit of a brief intro around the start of the company, where you are today, how you progressed from where you were to where you are. I know you have a rich history, so please take it away.
Well, Roger, thank you very much for that. And just before I start, I just wanted to say that the background I have on the screen is not one of our projects. It's it's from Google Meet. So I don't want people looking at that thinking that's what we do all the time. So just to start, I'm actually from Yorkshire, working now in London, and been doing property for around 26 years. Started buying some very small things to rent out. Very good way to start for people because you're going to make lots of mistakes. Better to learn mistakes on little things rather than the big things. That's my first little tip of the day. And then started to give them a lick of paint, sold for a small profit, and then went into development. And I use this example because my first project, people may not appreciate how clever I am because my first project, I had to move the location for the kitchen 3 times. So the reason why I say how clever I was clever enough to realize that I did not know what I was doing. and eventually, having driven my builder mad, and obviously cost me a little bit extra, got it right. And it helped me understand the importance of layouts and space plannings, which in a way is the backbone to what we do. And I then got a feng shui specialist to come and check it, and she was happy with it. And relative to the market, we sold them both pretty well. I then bought a couple of flats in Notting Hill, made famous by the film, and they were 2-bedroom flats when I bought them. And I did something strange for a developer. I changed them not into 3 beds, but actually into 1 bed. The reason was, again, the space worked much better. The level of finish in those days, it was laminate wood flooring, IKEA kitchens, simple but clean and fresh. The actress Sienna Miller bought one, somebody else bought another, and again, relative to the market, we sold them quite well. Then started to go up market, and in property, you'll find, Roger, everybody goes in their own field and obviously at their own pace. And we started to go up market, and step by step, we did a project in Belgravia, right in the center of one of the best areas of London. And this was a house, it just had windows at the front. It was a house used for the horses. So it was an old mews house, cobble street. Basically, the big houses would have a mews where they keep their horses and the I was going to say the driver, but that's the wrong name for them. Certainly not a chauffeur. They've now been converted into nice, beautiful properties. And the one we bought was obviously knackered, unmodernized, just had windows at the front, so it was very dark all the way around it. So what we did is we put a glass retractable roof and a 10.5-meter waterfall going down to a Zen garden. Okay. And basically turning the negative to a positive. And on that project, we won Best Interior Design in the country, Best Development in London. And there, we actually agreed terms with the Australian actress, Nicole Kidman, met with her. Then, fortunately for her, she got pregnant and changed her view of what she wanted to do in relation to the UK. And we then found another a French entrepreneur who then bought it. But with that property, because we won these awards and people liked all the special things that we did to it, they came to me and said, Alan, we like what you're doing. Can you do work for us? So we then started inadvertently doing work for other people. So today we have three parts of the business: development, services, and joining the dots. And on the development side, so we're out there looking for more sites to buy in central London, 10 to 50 mil, opportunity for people to introduce sites to us or investors. Then on the services, we have two main services, adding value to people's homes and projects through our architecture and design, and also sourcing tired and modernized properties for individuals who want something done, designed to their taste, and obviously with stamp duty being so high, buying it at a lower price point. Most of the design work we've done has been for private individuals, but some has also been done for other investors and developers. And the reason for that, I use the analogy of a dog. The dog has a tail, and either the tail is wagging the dog or the dog is wagging the tail. And what I mean by that is they're very good with their Excel spreadsheets doing all their numbers, but they're then being reliant upon their team to tell them what they should have. As against the dog, where you're the conductor of the orchestra, you then select the team. Sometimes the conductor will win the argument. Sometimes the team will win the argument. But the main differentiator is that the conductor has the vision and can then lead the team. And that's why certain people come to us when they get themselves into a fix. Alan, can you help do it out? Because we're quite unusual insofar as we've done all these projects ourselves. So I know what it's like to have, pressure from the bank and all the rest of it, and have to sell also in very difficult markets. You know, some of the things that we've done, I've had my builders power wash the pavement outside the property, right? Okay. So that the sense of arrival looks nice. Clean the bus stops, get the graffiti off the bus stop, get the graffiti off the local post box, so that the feeling that people have when they come into the properties is elevated, because people make many decisions. You know, have to think you have your conscious, your subconscious, but then your super subconscious. So you have to be a bit of a psychologist as well as when you're being a developer, because you don't know who's going to come and view your property. Some people are visual, some people are auditory, some people communicate smell, taste, and touch. So everybody's different. So you don't know what before they walk in. Is the music going to be important? Is the smell of the candles going to be important? Is the lighting going to be important? Is the space going to be important? You know, everybody's different.
I have heard in the past where people say, in the psychology term, that people decide on whether they like someone or whether they're going to purchase something first subconsciously, and then they come up with an explanation as to why consciously after they've already made the decision. So logic, even though we're logical beings, having the right mindset when you're making that decision is what actually makes the difference between am I going for it or if I'm not going for it. So that's very interesting that you've actually had that as a mindset when you're presenting your properties to the people that are coming to view them.
Absolutely, Roger. And a lot of people forget this, because, you know, we're all animals from the jungle in basic terms, and we're all different animals, and we all communicate in different ways. Until you meet somebody, you don't know how they're going to communicate. And you make, you know, these properties, you know, that cost a lot of money. Nobody needs, you know, what I do in central London, nobody needs to buy one of these properties. They already have a roof over their head. So if they don't like what they see, they don't turn around to the agent and say, you know, will they take an offer on this at a lower price? No, they don't say that. They say, what else do you have? Right. Exactly. And it's no different to a lady going into, a smart shop to buy a bag, you know, whether it's Louis Vuitton or Gucci or Prada, and they see a bag they like, but not in the right color. And they don't, you know, the sales lady or man says, you know, that's all we have. They don't say, well, would you take a discount? They say, they go round to the next shop.
Go to the next one. Exactly. Well, actually, something I wanted to touch upon, and I've got it down on our script here. With your history, the last 20 years of work you've done, you did mention that you had to start picking up all these regulations and all the heritage protection, especially in central London. You can't just go as an architect or a developer and do what you want. You need to adhere to some very strict standards that other architects, maybe outside the central London area, don't have to go through. They don't have to jump through those hoops. So can you tell us a bit about how this grade listing of properties and how you need to adhere to those standards and how it affects your work and your decisions?
Well, this is a time when most of your viewers might fall asleep, because it's pretty. It's, you know, regulations is not always the most exciting thing to talk about. But if I can just loosely explain, you know, obviously you have for putting doing a planning application, obviously you have to have the right regulations that meet the criteria of the council. That's obviously been heightened after the Grenfell atrocity, where especially on buildings which are higher than 18 meters, you now need to have multiple staircase, lifts, etc., for fire protection and use of escape. But if I get into the more nitty gritty, so we have the grading system of some of the properties here in London. Some are grade 2, some are grade 2 star, some are grade 1, some are grade 1 star. So basically, as soon as graded, you're limited to what you can do, which means that you not only have to get permission from the council, but you also have to get permission from English Heritage.
Okay.
On top of that, if you're in have a property in an area such as Belgravia, which a lot of which is controlled by the Duke of Westminster's estate, even if you have the freehold of the property, you still have to get permission from the Duke of Westminster's estate to do any work, which is very unusual because you own the freehold, so you think, well, you can do what the hell you want, but that's not.
It's not the case.
That's not the case.
It's of the star on the grading system. How does that change?
It's really the historical significance
Okay.
of what you can and can't touch. Staircases, as a rule, you can't touch. They're like one of the sacred parts, and then of course within each room, the coving, you know, the important walls, etc.
I'd expect it to be the frontage, like when you're going grading a building, is how it looks like from the outside. But
well, that goes without saying. You can't really touch that.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm talking about in the inside. Yeah, and it's, you know, you have to have a good English Heritage consultant, and it's each point is a power of not a power of negotiation, but is a negotiation with the people from English Heritage. And if I could just give a couple of examples. So this was not actually on the grade listed building, but on another building in Knightsbridge, which was still where you were limited to what you can do. I was going around there with my architect and the planning officer to show all the changes that we wanted to do. And the planning officer was going, oh, you can't do this and you can't do that. And my architect was saying, oh, yeah, I understand. And I was getting, you know, a bit frustrated. Why is he not, you know, confronting the planning officer and saying, well, why can't we do this? And then when the planning, we've been through the whole of the building, my architect, who is a lovely Irish gentleman, had a very nice way about him, said, well, you know, what if we just did this? And what if we just did that? And basically we got everything we wanted.
Oh, there you go.
So I come back to the psychology. It's not everything black and white. You have to have a nice way about it. But if I could just give one other example. So where I live is in actually also on the Duke of Westminster estate, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
and it's it's a flat. So I have a lease on the flat. So there was a law passed a couple of years ago called the Duval Law, where somebody from who had a lease on a property was told by the freeholder that a flat within the building had permission to do works.
Okay.
And normally, it's the freeholder who gives the permission. And the leaseholder said, well, I also live in the building, I also want to have my say.
Yeah.
And the freeholder said, well, it's none of your business. And this leaseholder then took it to the Supreme Court.
And they won.
And they won. And it's called the Duval case. And so when I wanted to do alterations to my own flat, I had to get separate permission on top of all the other things from 10 other leaseholders within the building and the adjoining buildings.
Yep.
So that's an example of, of some of the hoops that you sometimes have to come across. But, what I say is you can have more problems doing a one-bed flat than you can have doing a very sophisticated building if you have the wrong team.
Yeah, of course.
So it's a matter of having the right team.
And about their knowledge, who are the essential players within your team? If you were to break it down and go through like the part of initially getting a job and then the designing of a job and then whatever visits you need to make to sites and how it all progresses all the way to the end. Because obviously when you put it all on paper and you start doing a digital design, it's one thing. But when you look at the grading of the building and the practicality of the design and how it will be used from the people that are doing the work, then who are the key elements? Who are the people within the team and how do they work together to get from each phase to the end of the work?
So that's a really good question, Roger. Now, if I just perhaps first explain the different phases and then the horses and riders. So first of all, you get a brief from the client. Yeah. So, what is it they want to achieve? Then we'd look to get the layout right. And they will have their own ideas, but it's up to us to give them ideas which they didn't normally think of. And that is a process. It's not a one-stop hit. And once we've got the layout right, so we then look at the finishes. And then with the finishes, obviously depends if it's something we're going to sell, then we have to imagine that we're the buyer. If we're working for a client, then obviously it depends on their tastes, and every client obviously has different tastes. Then once we got the package finished, and that would also incorporate, electronics and all the wizardry that you may want to put into a property, we create a tender document, which is then put to a few different builders.
Okay.
Now we then get the tenders back from the contractors, the builders, and then you do what we call a tender report. And sometimes the cheapest builder is not always the best because they can often be more expensive later on with all the extras.
Okay.
And then we have somebody to manage the project through to completion. So if I then go back from the start, so initially you need to have a very good architect, depending on the project, and then working very closely with the interior designer, and then to bring in the other experts that you might need in order to get the tender document put together. And that could incorporate a structural engineer, a mechanical and engineer, some do the audio visual. If it's a basement, you may have to do some excavation to check how far you can dig. So there's lots of different people that you need to bring into the program, and there's probably there'll be a lot more as well. It depends on the if you're renovating a big office block into residential, or if you're doing a one-bed flat, obviously the sophistication is different. But,
yeah.
But what I do say is, whether you're doing a small thing or a big thing in a cheap area or an expensive area, the space planning is just as important.
Yeah, of
It
course.
doesn't matter where it is, the flow of the space. The differentiator is the budget you have for the finishes and the target market you have for the finishes. That's the differentiator.
Okay.
And then once you've got the brief all done and you put all the everything together, you have the tender document, and that will then be generally in our case, our project manager would then put it out to the different contractors.
Okay. Yeah.
And then once the tender comes back, he would look at those in conjunction with a quantity surveyor, because the quantity surveyor is able to then analyze all the costs. And then we then choose the contractor. Would have a legal document in place, generally called the JCT contract. And then we start the process of building out whatever we're going to do. And what's important is managing the build-up, because during the process, sorry, someone's just coming in to get their plug. During the process, the contract always changes, because there's always alterations that are being done. Even, no matter how good the drawings are, the tender document, the contract with the builder, there's always things that change during a build. And so you have to have not just a project manager, but also a good quantity surveyor, but also a contract administrator. So this person is to then adjust the contract with the builder as you progress, so that when you
written in stone, then you have a good plan, but as the development progresses, you can make changes on how things come together and what.
Things always happen, right? Whether it's a new build or a refurb, things always pop out that you weren't expecting, and which then gives so that you have that person to manage the contract, so you don't have problems at the end and you don't have fallouts with the builder.
Yeah,
you need to be firm but fair, but everybody needs to be correct. And then the other thing, if I can mention, is as these things change, why do they change? Because you come across things which you weren't expecting.
Yeah, of course.
That's why you have a site meeting once a month to go through what's been done, what needs to be done, and other alterations. And this is also why teamwork is so essential, because you have all the problem solving that you wouldn't always have in other different industries.
Yeah.
And I use the example of the car industry, where they can they do things that we can't do, because what we're doing is we're designing, I use the example, designing and manufacturing a brand new luxury motor car that's never been designed or manufactured before, but building it in an old factory. And the thing that we don't have that they have is a prototype. So they can work out all the problems and challenges on the prototype before they go into production. We can't do that. Even if it's a clean plot of land, things will happen. So it's essential to have a good team that you trust. You don't have big egos in the team, apart from, of course, your own. Joking, but decisions need to be done all during the process. So you have to. It's a real team game. You've got all the different horses and riders.
Yeah. And I guess the situation with you, with that analogy that you're using, is that with every new project, it's a new starting from the beginning. There's new requirements with every single one of the projects. With a car, once you design it and once it's ready, you go to mass manufacturing. You keep firing out the same thing again and again. Whereas for you, it's we've done it once. Now we need to do something again from scratch. It's not a repetition. But over years, you've built up the experience. This is how you can see things that other people can't before they happen. And you can see their requirements appearing through the process. but you were already expecting them rather than, oh, it was sprung up on us. We have some expectation of what's happening.
No, absolutely. And, my dad used to say, Alan, why can't you learn from other people's mistakes rather than always your own? and what we want to do is to give them the benefit of things that we've learned over the years, as against to, them having to have the mistakes, so that they can benefit from that.
There you go. So bringing it back to your team now and your workflow, in terms of how technology has evolved over the last 20 years that you've been working on this kind of workflows, and then how the new programs are coming through, how the new requirements of how to work. And obviously we have to mention AI and how it's digging its teeth in every single industry. How does that protect the work that you do, or how does it help you, or is it not quite there yet? What's your insights on how it applies to you?
Well, I've not yet heard of architects, once they're on a project, of using AI to help the intricate part of the design. Yes, of course, you can use AI, and it's fantastic in doing, this is the building, this is the size, give me some ideas. Yeah. So conceptually, it's very helpful, right? But when it comes down to the nitty gritty, it really needs sort of old-fashioned skills. You could have a furniture layout in a property, and then you could ask AI, give a traditional feel, give a contemporary feel, and all the rest. So it can assist in things like that. We've never used it like that. We've just done, for instance, a proposal for doing some staging on an amazing new development next to Buckingham Palace, right? So in that scenario, do we use AI? No, we looked at the colors of Buckingham Palace, so we can incorporate some of those within the themes for the mood boards that we generated for the flats that we want to do, because we want to try and tie in, why does somebody want to have a flat near Buckingham Palace? Because they want to draw into the history of the location. So in that situation, AI wasn't of assistance. Personally, I'm not a great person to ask on this, because it's not something I've really used. But for instance, basic two-dimensional floor plans, just floor plans on a piece of paper, AI can take those and generate 3D examples. So there is lots of good technology out there which can be used, in early stage visualization. But when it comes to the nitty gritty, and especially, you see, in London, a lot of the work is refurbishment, as against a new build. And I think in refurbishment, you have a lot more limitations, because you have historical pipes, historical walls. You have obviously the listing that we mentioned before, where even the AI bot, whatever it is, might say, well, the logic is to open up that wall and move that staircase, because the grade 2 listing, whatever, you can't do that, right? Yeah. So I don't think it's as yet sophisticated enough to be able to do anything specifically on those types of projects. Yeah. You could imagine maybe in 20 years' time, you say, 18 Westbury Road, I want to redo that and put on a rear extension. And just by saying that, it'll go into the historical planning portal. It'll look through all the historical plans. It'll look at the planning regulations, and it might be able to then design something that conforms to the local regulations, right?
Yeah.
But but you never know what's going to happen in the future. Um, and then what you do is you just tweak, decide whether you want a contemporary scheme, a traditional scheme, or what I call a Ralph Lauren's or rich color scheme. And then 10 minutes later, you got
You've got a result, yeah.
and you then press a button to put it into as a planning application, or everything's been done, and it automatically takes the cost from your saved credit card.
Yeah, there is a promise on how it could be in 20 years' time, but today, the fact that you have to load the restrictions that into this AI for it to then make the decisions, it just isn't practical, or at least it would take longer to train it to do what you want it to than actually doing the work yourselves. That it could be helpful in scenarios, but you need to have a human at the driver's seat. So that's a great point to take away. Now, in terms of the day-to-day operations of your team, do you still work from an office? Do you work remotely? Are you able to be in a hybrid scenario? What's your personal take on the way we work?
I think every company is different, and it depends on the roles and the amount of people within the team. So my team is now a tight team of three of us. There's obviously myself. I have a lady, Claudia, who heads up our architecture and interior design, who's a qualified architect here in the UK. Her dad was an architect in Italy, so she's sort of grown up with it. I have another gentleman called Hamza, who is Moroccan. He's also trained as an architect in Morocco, and that has additional to that, a couple of business master's degrees. And he, in essence, heads up the operation. Claudia heads up the design. Obviously, we bring people in as we need them. We work. We had an office until September of last year, which we left, and Claudia has a design studio at home. She has a young boy, so that works well with her, saves time commuting. Hamza and I work mostly from the Institute of Directors here in Pall Mall and St. James's, which is a great place to work. That's where I'm doing the podcast from now. I also have a home office. Hamza also has a home office. It depends. This morning I was in Savile Row, where they make the sites, looking at an old police station which has planning permission to be turned into offices and maybe a hotel. Climbing up on the roof, doing a video in the rain, getting wet. But it's the part of helping on design and doing development. You have each day is very different, and often you're out and about. So the key is getting your team to work well wherever they are. And it can actually be stronger to have a smaller team than a bigger team, and I've certainly found that. I've never worked as hard as I am doing now, and I've never been as motivated as I am now with a small team, where again I think you take greater responsibility, where in the larger team you can sometimes sit back a little bit.
Yeah, you get lost between the cracks in the work. So with that in mind, what do you see as like one of the biggest operational or technological frustrations with the way you work when you're working remotely, or when you're working on site, or when you find your work from where you are now, which is essentially a co-working space? Would you call it, a more of an open space?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
sharing the space. So what is the biggest issue or operational hurdle that you're finding with the way you're working?
Interesting, Roger. If you'd asked that question 5 or 10 years ago, you may have had a list of different things. But today, I actually, certainly for our business, I actually work better not being in an office, strangely enough. I can sometimes concentrate better being in a busy coffee bar or you know, we're lucky in London to have the park. So sometimes first thing in the morning, I'll go and work from one of the cafes in the parks.
Wow.
But you know, sometimes when you're in an office, you get distracted by different people, and when you're working on your own and you have your own thing to do, you have no distractions apart from yourself. And that's why working from home sometimes can be a distraction, because you've got other things you can do. Whereby if you go somewhere, and it doesn't matter where it is, but the fact that you're physically going somewhere in order to then do your work means, for me anyway, that I can 100% concentrate. And we do weekly. I mean, we talk to each other, you know, every day. Each week we'll have a team either Zoom meeting or actually a physical meeting, depending on what we've all got going on. So obviously we have a team WhatsApp group, etc., etc. So communication today is so easy. You know, there's no restrictions. You know, and you know, yeah, it's evolved.
So essentially, it's the white noise and the black noise argument, isn't there? So when you go out in a public space to work, because it's not your space, everything that's not brought there by you, it sort of blends in the background, and that background just keeps you separated from it, so you can focus on your work. Whereas when you are in your environment, then the different things you can do, it's your environment. You can spread into it, and suddenly you're moving away from your screen and closer to other things that are happening. The random person you work with that reaches out to tell you a joke, or you need to go and get up and get a coffee, which takes you away from your work. You're at home and the children are in the way. You're out in a cafe, it's not your space. So you're kind of enclosed into something that is yours, and that's your laptop. And that's really all you need when you do your work.
No, absolutely. And, you know, I can be in a really busy place and be able to concentrate 110%. And if somebody taps me on the shoulder, I sort of come out of my skin, like, you know, like a proper shock, because I'm not expecting it. And I'm so focused. I think the reason is because I'm so focused in what I'm doing, you know, and I think that's good. It means that you, and we're all different animals from the jungle. You know, I mentioned that before. We all work in different ways in different scenarios, you know, and some, you know, some hate noise, some love noise, some, you know, we're all different.
Yeah, find the environment that works for you and keep working in it.
Yeah.
Final question before we start up a running. It's about future bottlenecks. So you've seen your business, your industry evolve in a certain way, and during COVID and then after, and now in remote working and AI trying to find its way into everything. What future bottlenecks would you fix from today, or would you see coming up and you start preparing for the next few years, in the next 5 years for your business?
That's a very good question. I don't think there's any what I call artificial. I mean, the only bottleneck I can think of is actually planning permissions with the council, right? Every developer, every person looking to get planning permission generally has frustration with the councils, right?
Yes.
And I do not understand why the planning fees are so low. They need to be higher.
Okay.
So that they can be properly funded and have more people, right? You know, it's not the council's fault. You know, they have a certain budget they have to work in. Yes. And all the people who work, all the planning officers, they are all overworked, and they're all under immense pressure. And the reason being that the fees are not enough to pay more people.
Would you not find a danger, though, that if the fees increase, then rather than compensating the officers better, those fees might start leaching into other things around them, which eventually will put them in the same scenario. It's something we've seen with public services before. The higher the available funding, that funding will start going in different places rather than specifically on the public.
Well, you then, I guess, talking about having more middle management, higher management, them getting big fat salaries and just orchestrating. Yeah.
Yes.
Listen, I mean that's the job of politicians and the jobs of people who work in the councils.
Yeah.
You know, how they allot the money. But that is a big bottleneck for many people looking to get permission.
Yeah.
You know, on the transaction side, ways to improve the speed of transactions. I think that is, you know, it's now becoming, you know, you have to have all the paperwork ready before you put a property on the market. That's going to take some time to actually get into practice. Most people are pretty, especially, you know, are very lax on that. It could be a rule that if you make an offer, if you want to make an offer on the property, you can only make an offer legally if you've already passed the AML KYC program.
Oh yeah.
You know, that could be a good rule.
Assessment though with the know your customer.
Sorry?
Who does the assessment with the know your customer?
Often it's the lawyer.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, you may, you know, if you had a rule that you can't actually make an offer on a property unless you have that done, that would be a good thing to do, in my view.
Well, there's quite a few different admin bits then that you would see possibly having to improve in order to make the process more streamlined. You get the right people doing the offers because they've already been checked over. You get the people that are currently overworked, better compensated, and actually maybe provide funding to get some more people in the planning permissions groups. And all those things are the bottlenecks that you see today in your business, which might actually increase in the future and they're not assessed properly today. So that is very interesting. Is there anything else, final remarks you'd like to push out right before we end the podcast today?
Well, I guess all I'd say is if any of your viewers have found any of it interesting and need any assistance or on any of the aspects that we talked about, obviously welcome to look at our website, if I can mention it.
Yeah, please.
Landmass.co.uk. That's landmass.co.uk. This is being done on, if I can mention, on the 14th of November, and we're looking to launch our new website in, I guess, 3 or 4 weeks. So either side of Christmas. So
amazing.
Hopefully that will be interesting for people to look at, and there's lots of other podcasts on there that they can
that's interesting enjoy. I'd be interesting to go and have a look at it. So if you're watching this video now, jump on the website straight away, go and see the design that's there, and then jump again with the new year and see before and afters. And then do get in contact with Alan, especially if you're down in London and you'd like any advice. Obviously he's got a lot of experience in the industry and years of work to come and support it. Apart from that, Alan, thank you very much for coming over to the podcast, for being our first guinea pig in the LoLa podcast. And hopefully we'll have you up again, and next time we'll have you in a studio so we can have our coffee, we can have a proper chat and be face to face. How's that?
Well, that'd be great, Roger, but it depends on the quality of the coffee, of course.
Oh, yes. Make sure it's proper. Thank you very much, Alan. Have a good evening.